Think we'll get started. I'll just start with the opening remarks and then we can continue to let people in. Welcome everyone. My name is Adelina Simpson and I'm co-chair along with Alexander Velardo of the Educational Committee of the UB Law Alumni Association's Gold Group. We are both 2018 graduates of the law school. Thank you all today for attending the CLE titled Focus Groups for Trial Preparation in the Age of COVID. This is one in a series of many virtual programs that the Law Alumni Association and Gold Group are hosting as a service for our alumni and law students. If you're interested in attending other upcoming webinars and CLEs, you can register on the UB Law School website, and you can also listen to past webinars for free on our new alumni education webpage. To receive discounts and free 1-hour CLEs, please consider becoming either an annual or lifetime member of the UB Law Alumni Association. Finally, I would like to thank our Gold Group sponsors who have helped underwrite the costs associated with these events. They are Chicago Title, Council Press, Equitable Advisors, Jack W. Hunt and Associates, and Precision Resolution LLC and Paramount Settlement Planning LLC. Now, just a few brief administrative points. You will be muted during the course of the presentation. If you have a question at any time, please use the chat room and we will try to address the questions at the end. At some point during the CLE, the course code will be announced and it will also be placed in the chat room. Please be sure to catch it as you will need to put it on the attorney verification form that was included on the registration page. This form is required to issue you your CLE credit. We also ask that you complete the program evaluation form found on that page. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speakers. We are fortunate enough to have 4 speakers today who are all attorneys with the law firm of Cantor, Wolf, Nicastro, and Hall. They are Courtney Frank, who is an associate attorney, and David Wolf, Joe Nicastro, and Rich Hall, who are all partners at the firm. All of our speakers today are graduates from the University at Buffalo School of Law and now practice personal injury law with practice areas including automobile, motorcycle, pedestrian and construction accidents, slip and fall cases, medical malpractice, wrongful death, dog bites, and nursing home abuse and neglect. And with that, I will turn it over to our speakers and our program will now begin.
All right, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
That's cool. Adelina, thank you for the excellent introduction. Like Adelina says, myself, I'm Joe Nicastro. I got my partner Dave Wolf here as well, and my partner Rich Hall, and one of our colleagues, Courtney Frank. We're an injury firm, and we're going to talk about focus groups today because they're very, very important for a lot of reasons. And I believe Courtney's going to start us off with one of the topics.
All right, so I'm just going to start us off why we do focus groups. Undoubtedly, people's attitudes have changed because of COVID-19, and this change and their shift in attitudes makes focus groups that much more useful. Focus groups, especially those done in the age of COVID, now give us the insight into trials post-COVID and how these newfound attitudes will affect the outcomes of our cases. Let's face it, the trials as we knew them are long gone, and we now need to turn our attention to identifying if there are issues that exist post-COVID that did not exist pre-COVID. And we need to also identify how each of those issues will affect our case. If in a positive light, then we obviously want to discover those as soon as possible so that we can capitalize on them and use them to our advantage. And then if in a negative light, we want to identify them again as soon as possible so that we can get ahead of the issues and hopefully work on spinning them in a not so negative light. We all have our theories and predictions as to how a issue will affect the outcome of our case. However, if these theories and predictions were made pre-COVID, then they are not reliable post-COVID, okay? Our theories and predictions must be tested. And you can do that by way of a focus group. Okay, you should be focus grouping both yourself and other attorneys on the file. You must test the different mentalities, check yourself in light of those new mentalities, and do a self-analysis. If you are not doing any of these things, then you are simply rolling the dice.
Okay, I'm going to talk about a virtual focus group versus in person. Obviously, right now, it's a little tough to get people in the same room. Everything's virtual because of COVID. And the idea is while we're waiting for the courts to open back up full time, we can get back in front of juries and trying cases. In the meantime, this is the next best thing is doing it virtually. Why? Because it's ideal, because it's just common sense. When you're in a room with someone, you're going to read them better, you're going to connect to them better, you're going to relate to them better, versus a barrier being there if you're going to do it virtually. Let me see here. Obviously, what's important about doing it virtually, though, is you have to adjust to the law and what the rules are. It's kind of funny because when we were putting the CLE together a couple weeks ago, we were still kind of locked down. Now that things are opening up, it's a little easier. But still, you have to be mindful when you're conducting these focus groups of what's going on, and maybe there's people that aren't vaccinated, or they just will wear masks forever and never take them off. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of people like that, but the most important thing is obviously, have the masks, have hand sanitizer, sneeze guards, partitions. Again, I don't know if anyone has any focus groups coming up. Who knows what the rules and regulations are going to be, but the idea is if you're going to get people in a room, especially since we're still in the age of COVID, technically, you want everybody to be comfortable. You don't want anybody coming there with a chip on their shoulder, being uncomfortable, and then them having some type of an adverse effect on the entire focus group. Let me see here. Just some tips too here is
I'll jump in with the general tips. Okay.
He is the tip.
The more virtual focus groups that we do, the more we tend to realize the importance of implementing certain tools and procedures. As general tips, we would suggest using Zoom as opposed to other virtual platforms. Reason being is that in our experience, Zoom tends to have less lag. It also tends to be more user friendly, and it has enough features where it's useful, but not distracting. We've also found that people tend to be more familiar with the Zoom platform as opposed to others like Microsoft Teams. Some of the important features that we have used in the past and have been very useful in making this an open communication opportunity are things like the ability for the listeners to essentially click on a button and virtually raise their hand without, with very minimal distraction to both the speaker and the listeners. Users, including the speaker, also does have the ability to use a chat box in which they can send a message to all participants or just to one. And again, that opens it up for open communication, which is what you're going to want when it comes to your focus group. And we'll get into that some more. Also, when it comes to conducting these virtual focus groups, we do recommend that you allow your participants to take frequent breaks. You got to remember that a lot of the people who are logging on to your focus group are doing so from home. Okay. And so they're dealing with a lot of the distractions that come with being at home, whether it's kids, pets, noises. So you got to learn to deal with that. Okay. There's also that urge to get up and get a food or a drink or check on things around the house, use the bathroom, play with their phones. So by giving them frequent breaks, you help manage those urges so that they are focused when you need them to be. Another tip that we would suggest is that you keep everything simple. Okay. That includes your presentation and the questions that you are posing to your participants. If you are spoon feeding your participants, you're not allowing them the opportunity to interpret and really think about what you are telling them. You have to keep their minds going or else they are going to wander, okay? Especially being that they are home. You may also want to make sure when you start your focus group that everyone is alone in a quiet room. Part of being in a focus.
Oh, looks like we lost Courtney there. Can everybody else hear us?
Yeah, it died out.
Yep. All right. Rich, why don't you go just head to the next slide?
Hear me okay?
Yep. Go ahead, Rich. Or I mean, sorry, Joe.
All right, I'm going to talk about the setup a little bit here. Just move this box out of the way. The gallery mode for Zoom is the best. It's where you can see everyone and you can hear everyone. We got that kind of going on right now with this with the CLE. Obviously, if you're going to be doing a virtual focus group, make sure the lighting in the room is really good. You know, the ring light's excellent. You don't want it to be too dark because it's just going to have a bad vibe. Not going to see anybody. You know, common sense type stuff. Also, make sure you have a good camera. You know, I don't know. I think everyone here obviously has some kind of a camera, else you wouldn't be able to appear virtually. But you know, not all cameras are produced equally. But I will say, my partner Dave did a good job saving the company $80 this year, and he found these guys, these little Logies that are like $6. But they do the job. But you know, it's nothing wrong with having a good camera. Recording is very interesting too, because you can actually enable the recording move kind of like we're doing right now. And, you know, there's a lot of reasons why you're going to want to record your focus group. And Rich is probably going to talk to you a little bit about that towards the end. Also, Courtney's done a stellar job here preloading slides and pictures. And as you can see, even though we're all at a distance and we're separated in our COVID age here, she did a great job putting together the slideshow. And actually, Rich, did you put together the slideshow?
Yeah, what this is in reference to is when you do a Zoom focus group, you got to make sure that everything is preloaded, so that you have an easy presentation. It's a lot simpler and a lot smoother for a Zoom focus group when all the slides, pictures, everything is preloaded on the machine and ready to go.
And it's actually easier than you can believe too. I did a virtual arbitration. It was right before COVID hit. It was a really big high-low case. There was a lot on the line, and we had, you know, literally there was like 5 or 6 witnesses. We had the 3 arbitrators, and I had never really had any experience with Zoom, but it literally took me 5 minutes to learn how to master the Zoom technology. It's pretty easy. You just take whatever it is you wish to display, if it's an exhibit, police report, whatever, you turn it into a PDF, and then you can just legit just easily pull it right off your home screen, pop it right into the Zoom, and it works great. So, all right, and we're gonna pass the torch here.
All right, hopefully you can see and hear me now.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I just want to jump back and just reiterate that you need to be making sure that your participants are alone in a quiet room. Your distractions are going to be the end all be all of your focus groups. You have got to do everything in your power to minimize distractions and protect your focus group results. Now, we understand that it is much harder to control these distractions from a virtual platform. However, we're telling you it is very manageable if you follow these tips, and we've had really good results. So, okay, so when it comes to who to get for your focus groups, when you're putting these groups together, you want to try and match the demographics of your venue the best that you can. Now, we've realized this is a little harder to do during COVID and now post-COVID, depending on where you consider us being now. But because people don't always have access to a computer or a smartphone, much less a computer or a smartphone with a working camera, microphone, and speakers. The other thing is that the people who tend to be familiar and more inept to want to join a virtual focus group generally are coming from certain employment and business backgrounds. So don't just go with somebody who is familiar with the Zoom platform, okay, as opposed to somebody who is not. the closer you can get to your venue demographics, the better your results are going to be. So just keep in mind that there's typically always somebody around who can set someone up who isn't familiar, so that they can also participate in a focus group. Just be ready, because sometimes that person may be you. So you may also want to just make sure you have at least another attorney or a paralegal or somebody on the focus group meeting to help assist you with setting everybody up and getting started and monitoring to make sure that there aren't any issues. Because as you can see, issues pop up. Okay, so there's many ways that you can go about finding people for your focus group. Some of those include jury lists, phone books, social media, Craigslist, flyers. Social media right now is huge. You're going to want to book 8 people to get 6 to show up. We have found that I would say at least 70% of the time people don't show up, and it's okay. It's also okay to go ahead and do a focus group with more than 6 people. We have just found in our experience that if you have more than 6, there tends to be 1 or 2 people that don't speak up as much. But again, it's okay to proceed with more than 6. If by chance you have less than 5 people who show up to your focus group, we do not conduct those focus groups. Okay, we will set a different time. Obviously you pay your people, and then you would get different people to show up for your next focus group. But if you're only doing it with 5 or less, then obviously you're running the chance of it not being a fair and accurate representation of your venue demographic, which are going to obscure your results. When it comes to your participants, they are to be on time or they are not paid. It's a slippery slope to do anything but. We typically offer anywhere from $75 to $100, and we've actually had good success with that rate, despite everything going on surrounding COVID. The thing about participating in a focus group is that this isn't like a job. There's no application, it's a tax-free pay, and you can do it from home. Okay, I'll turn it over to Joe about who to avoid.
Yeah, thanks, Courtney. So who to avoid? You want to avoid people that are involved in a lawsuit for 1,000 reasons. They might be jaded, they might be biased towards one position or another. They're just, you kind of want just kind of like neutral people that you think can be open-minded and just don't have a lot of bias, which is very hard. It's very hard because you don't want to be too picky, else you're not going to have it. You also want to avoid people with prior jury service, because it's almost like, again, they're going to kind of, possibly have a tainted view of the system. They might have an axe to grind with the system. They might have been involved in a case just like yours in the past, and they might just be a little too smart in that situation. And you don't want people that are too smart. You want just people that are kind of, just your average ordinary people that are just kind of vanilla, and they come in there nice and neutral, and you can trust their judgment and their opinions, and you just try to exclude the bias. But again, I can't stress enough that you don't want to be too picky, or else you're not going to have the right pool of people. If it's a like a mechanical case, exclude experts and people with similar backgrounds, because they have an unfair advantage. They know the topic, they're going to have an unfair advantage. I think anybody who's on this Zoom call can also relate to that. It's almost impossible sometimes to pick a perfect jury. You might get stuck with that one guy who's a know-it-all and just knows a little too much. And you don't want people, your ideal situation is when you're picking a jury or like a focus group. Like, I think there's gonna always be that little bit of a leader in the room. You kind of need someone to be the leader, but you want to try to avoid in real life, especially at trial, the leader not being on your side, or you're in bad shape. Exclude people with difficulty reading and writing. Obviously, that's not, it's not like you're picking on somebody or discriminating against somebody. It's just there's going to be a lot of exhibits that they might have to look at, and you need them to communicate with you. And you just don't want to waste your pick on someone who's not going to be able to do the job you hired for them. No friends or family. That's kind of tricky, because sometimes, if you're you're in a jam with people, you'll be like, okay, I'm gonna call my friend, but it's just not gonna work out because, they're always gonna be a little bit on your side. It's gonna be very, even if they don't mean it, subconsciously, I think they're just gonna be pulling in your direction naturally. And you want people to play devil advocate. You want these focus groups to identify all the weaknesses in your case. And you don't want people that are cheerleaders. You need people to really tear your case apart, give you what you need so you have the ammunition moving forward with your case and you can find the path to victory. That's about it for me to avoid.
All right, so Rich, if you don't mind, yeah. So I want to just for a second, let's see if I can spotlight myself here. There, that should be good. I don't know if does that pop me up big? I'm not sure. Perfect. Okay, great. Okay, so I wanted to kind of jump in here now, and before we continue on with slides, kind of talk about really what focus groups I've used them for in the past few years. So Mark Canner and I, my other partner, we've been working on an absolutely huge case for 6-7 years now, the Delaware Park case, where the young boy was killed on the 198. Very, very, very serious case. Very, lot of work was done over the years on it. And, at one point we brought Rich on board before he was a part of the firm and just had him run a focus group. And this was pre-COVID, had him come on and really go through and talk about the issues, try and find issue spots. And I'm not going to talk about what we found exactly in there, but we found absolutely extremely important information in that. And right after that, COVID hit. And, we were kind of faced with an option over the last year and a half or so of, hey, what do we do? Do we want to run other focus groups? Do we want to see how they react? Well, ultimately, we did, kind of figure out more focus groups to run. And it was so interesting because a lot of the ultimate problems, and I'm not going to call them problems, but things that the focus groups focused on were a lot of the same stuff, but sometimes their attitudes changed a little bit and they would relate those things to how COVID, what was going on with COVID. So, very important that you continue to always do is more than one focus group, as many as you can. More the better. I know Rich and I have been doing them back in the Matar days. We were doing them at least once or twice a month, which was extremely helpful. So this is one topic. Rich, you can go ahead and share the screen here again. Let me see how I can remove spotlight. Okay, so when and how long? Honestly, guys, there's not much to this. We don't have to spend a ton of time here. The really easy answer is, when are you going to be able to get people to come in? When are you going to be able to get them to come in and be beneficial? We used to run them at Fridays from 11 to 4 p.m. Who do you think we got on Fridays from 11 to 4 p.m.? We got people that didn't typically work or had, unusual job situations. We want the 9 to 5 people a lot of times. We want those individuals. So that's why we started doing Tuesday through Thursday evenings, 5:45 starts. We'd run till about 8:30, 9 o'clock. I have on there 4 to 5 hour sessions with 15-minute breaks. I think it's really, really important, the breaks, that you find good places to breaks every hour at the very least. You're going to find that sometimes you get your best information during breaks, because what you're doing is you're recording, and this is more so in person, but you're recording these folks. And if you just walk out of the room or turn your camera off and mute yourself and step out, you will find that the majority of focus group participants will talk during that time period, and that is where you're going to get your gold. And I know Rich probably will be able to talk about that. Go ahead, Rich. Next slide. But now, as far as the nitty gritty, so now we're kind of getting into the trade secrets, I'll kind of call them. So this is extremely important. This is the most important part of the focus group in general. It's the introduction. You're laughing to yourself. You're like, hey, why is this so important? Isn't the case, the issue spots, how I present? Those things are important. But if you do not set the tone in the introduction right away, you will have failed the focus group and all the data will be completely corrupt. what do I mean by that? Okay, so where are you hosting the focus group is a great question. Linda Marsh, my co-counsel on that case, allowed us to use her office on there was like a neutral area, neutral conference room. You do not want to have everybody come into your conference room office and be like, hey, what are we doing here? We're at this plaintiff's personal injury firm. What do you think? They're going to figure things out as far as that goes. Need to make everything as neutral as possible. When you do the Zoom, if you're doing a Zoom meeting, you do not want to represent in any way that you are from a law firm. What you are actually going to represent is that you are doing a focus group on behalf of the law firms or law firm, and that this is the most important part, that this is a real case with real issues. What do I mean by that? Do not come in there and say that, hey, what you do today, I just want to know your thoughts. I just want to know your opinions. This isn't necessarily going to be used, anything like that. No, you want to put the pressure on them right away. You want them to understand that this is a real case. This is going to be a real impact. I know a lot of you folks are thinking right now, well, I don't want to get into, confidential stuff, or I don't want them to feel that way. Have them sign a confidentiality agreement right away at the start of the focus group, that you can record them, and that also that they will not discuss it with anybody. You need to stress the importance of what they're doing is going to be used, okay? That really puts the onus on them. It puts the pressure on them to be the ones that are speaking. And of course, then the other thing is, and this is a sin of a lot of trial lawyers, what we want to do is we want to convince, we want to really, have conversations and really figure things out and argue in a trial at times. You do not want to do that at all in the introduction, especially. You want to stress the importance that there is no bad answers, there's no bad questions, and that their opinions are very, very important. Now, how do we do that? That means just rolling through and continuing to ask them questions and making sure that when I do the introduction every time, and I've done many, many of them, I will point to certain people and I will say, Miss Smith or Sherry, are you comfortable with telling me everything today, even if it makes me uncomfortable? Okay. Are you comfortable with giving me bad answers that, you might think might hurt one side of the case? And I'm not an advocate one way or the other. You want to stress the importance of being neutral. If I want to play devil's advocate and want to push you a little bit, are you comfortable with answering some more questions? Do that for one or two of the people. And that really sets the tone of them understanding, hey, you made an agreement with me that you were going to really be honest and open with me. So that's really, really important. And then, of course, just briefly going through the Zoom etiquette, make sure everybody understands that they can be muted in that. Rich can go ahead and go to the next one. Okay, so the presentation. Now, I think this is where it kind of gets interesting. So what I usually like to do for my very first presentation is just a very simple statement of the facts of what happened. So an example of that, for our Sugarofsky case, the Delaware Park case, what we did was we kept it very general, did not do an opening statement, talked about what happened, just some brief, and when I say brief, I mean it was a page and a half of facts. Then at that point, we just passed it off to them and said, what are your thoughts? What can I get from you? What do you understand? The best question after the brief statement of the facts, the best question is, can someone tell me what happened here? And just let them go. They will talk amongst themselves. You will be shocked at how many times something as simple as who rear-ended who will get confused just after a 5-minute conversation. So, the first one, typically, I usually like a brief statement of the facts. When we get closer to trial, Rich and I will get much more specific on what we want to do. What I really enjoy, have done with Rich in the past that was very effective is an opening statement. And once again, when you give your opening statement, it really should not be you that gives it, excuse me. Now I know what, a lot of us, as trialers, and you can pause this for a second, Rich, you can stop the share. I'm going to actually go spotlight here for 1 second. Okay. So a lot of us as trial attorneys, we enjoy the spotlight in some ways, and we want to tell a story, and we want to see how we're doing giving the opening statement. Okay, that is useful and helpful in some ways, but and it is always important to get comfortable with speaking with people, of course, and that's how I think in my first few years of being an attorney, it really helped me with getting comfortable with talking with prospective jurors, even though they're focus group members. But what is really important during that time period is not you giving the statement, it's the facts and the opening itself, the content of it. And again, so Rich used to give me, when I was a law clerk there 8 years ago at Matar's office, he would give me the opening statement to read. Really good, powerful thing to do. Give a paralegal the opening statement to read. Give somebody the opening statement to read and say, this person's going to come in, they're going to talk about it, and then they're going to leave. Boom, they leave the room, then I would leave the room, and then Rich would go back in and he'd be the one to ask the questions of the people, or the moderator would come in and ask the questions for it. Now, why is that so important? Because every single one of us, it is the hardest thing to train ourselves with focus groups on how not to argue in those situations. How, when we hear something bad, we immediately want to clarify it. So for example, what might happen is I might give an opening statement and it comes back and I'll ask that first question. Hey, what is important to you? What happened here? What are your thoughts on what happened here? And just keeping it very general. What are your thoughts on what happened? And somebody might say, well, that other woman seemed like she wasn't paying attention. And you might have deposition testimony that already says, hey, this person admits that they were paying, or says that they were paying attention, and there's no evidence otherwise. No. Do not do that. Don't bring that up. Don't come in and try and correct things. What you are trying to learn from that information is you are trying to get those snippets, because you're not going to have an opportunity to talk to the jury, obviously, during the trial. And what you are looking for is that one or two people who automatically have that bias and thought process, because you will know then when you give your opening statement that one or two people is going to feel that way. Okay. And you know that you have to address that with the witness then during the case, or you need to change your opening statement. So for those situations, an opening statement, we've shown crosses of witnesses that were actually recorded. We've shown depositions, portions of depositions that are shown. All those things can be used for a very, very specific reason, and it changes on each case. But when you're just generally doing a beginning focus group, you want to just issue spot is what our firm calls it. You're just looking for examples of things that come to their attention that you need to address. Okay, go ahead back to the presentation, Rich, if you don't mind.
If I could just jump in for a second.
Go ahead,
just
Adeline.
to announce the course code, since we're more than halfway through. So the course code for today's presentation is jury. And just a reminder that this form is required to issue you your CLE credit. So make sure that you return that to us. Again, the course code is jury, and I will also put that in the chat. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Rich, you can stay on that slide. All right. So the other thing that we have a tendency to do is we want to cram many things into one focus group. Okay, it will feel 3 to 4 hours, or 3 hours long. Will feel like, hey, we can fit so many issues in. We can talk about the liability side, and then an hour and a half we can talk about the damages, and we can go through all these things. That's typically not what I would recommend in any way. I think you are looking for one, maybe two big issues that you want to address. And once you get that information, you should either move on to another case, or you should really take time to flesh that out. A proper focus group to hit one issue is going to take at least an hour to 2 hours on a specific issue. And what I mean by that is you're going to let them drive where the conversation goes in a lot of ways. Now, I know a lot of us are saying, okay, well, right now there's not a ton of trials going on. I know there was a couple verdicts recently, which is good to hear that we're getting back in the courtroom and things are moving. But where you can really use these things as a weapon, and this is something that a lot of people don't do, and you're going to find that the mediators absolutely love this. You're going to be kind of shocked at how much the mediators love this stuff. Is you record the focus group via either a video camera in person, or just obviously the recording on Zoom is so easy. And when you're recording it, what you can do afterwards is have somebody, find somebody that knows how to work, a little bit of editing in that, and find snippets that are great for a mediation to use. Now, what do I mean by that? So recently in the COVID era, we did and we haven't had the mediation yet, but I'm looking forward to doing this. We recently had one, and we were recording, and what happened was it was a semi truck, a Brinks armor truck is going behind somebody. A vehicle in front of them starts to slow down. The Brinks truck can't stop, so swerves into the turning lane. Our guy was going to do a U-turn, pulled over, who was in front there, pulled over into the turning lane, tried to do a U-turn, and that person kind of rear-ended. So the Brinks auto truck rear-ended our client's vehicle. I know it's a little bit maybe confusing as far as how quickly I went through that. But so what we did was we took the video, there was surveillance video of the motor vehicle collision. And we literally showed them the motor vehicle collision and asked them what happened. That's it. We asked them what happened. And within the first 30 seconds, we had tons of bad stuff against our client. Okay. But a lot of bad stuff. But then we got some really great stuff against the defendant. Hey, I bet you she was on her cell phone right before this. I bet you that she wasn't trained properly, all this stuff. And what we did was then we cut those little snippets. And listen, we're honest with the mediator always. We're not going to tell them that this is the only stuff in there. But then we gave the mediator those snippets. And what at the mediation that's upcoming, we're going to be using those kind of things and showing them, hey, why? Oh, they have this concern. They think that our client zoomed over. Well, here's what they think of your client. Okay. And it is so powerful. We've done it once or twice already, and it's extremely powerful. The mediators love it because they're able to use that as part of their presentation. So, as far as the actual presentation goes, try and stay neutral as possible. Go ahead to the next slide, Rich. I think you're up. You're muted, Rich.
Before I touch on the next slide, just want to give you guys a little background in terms of how many focus groups that we've done over the years and currently. I've done over 1,000 focus groups over the past 5 years. And in addition to that, we're trying to do them on a monthly basis here as well. The ones we've done so far have all been Zoom. We haven't attempted an in-person one. We're going to try and shoot for an in-person one as soon as they clear the way for group gatherings. But I can tell you, just based on the ones that we've done during COVID and comparing those to the results before, opinions out there have radically changed. If you have a trial and you are not focus grouping your case at this point, you are purely guessing. The opinions of these people and the jurors, there's so much has happened. Just think about it in 2020, just pick 1 month. So much has happened, so much has changed. The opinions of people have been altered by the brutal year that 2020 was, and we need to figure out what those opinions are and how they're going to affect our clients. From the plaintiff's perspective, it's good news. If you've noticed, there's verdicts for plaintiffs all over the country. Some of the highest verdicts, there was a $411 million verdict in California, a $29 million one in Florida the other day. The verdicts are coming down. We just had a $1 million verdict in Buffalo on a MedMail case. I believe it came down last week. What I think the trend going forward is, and what we've seen in our focus groups, is that people no longer have to imagine. You don't have to ask a jury to imagine what it would be like if a person had to go without a job, or if a person has to imagine what it's like not to be able to feed their family. It's things now that people, the average Joe, has experienced and worried about themselves. And not doing a focus group and not inputting that into your case is a huge mistake, especially on the plaintiff side. So along those lines, the questions that you ask during a focus group, especially now, especially over Zoom, because it gets complicated on a Zoom, is one idea per question. Simple questions over Zoom are the best policy. In addition, you want to make sure that everyone on the Zoom, Courtney had touched upon this a little bit, the quiet room, everyone's paying attention, but you want to make sure that everyone heard the question. In addition, I've given you an example of a bad question. Why was the defendant negligent? Actually, you're suggesting already the answer to the question. As a focus group, you should be aiming towards doing it completely impartially, not slanting to the results whatsoever. That question slants the results. You're suggesting that someone was negligent. A better question is who was at fault here and why? And as Dave hit on, I actually go even simpler. What happened and why? If you can keep it unslanted as much as possible, that's the best. Also, the strongest question in any focus group, and again, particularly now, because opinions have changed so much, when someone answers your question, you want to follow it up with why. And then after they're done answering that, you follow it up with, tell me more about that. You're mining for gold. You're trying to figure out exactly what the person's thinking. And a lot of times they will not tell you what they're thinking until you push them and prod them a little bit in a nice way. But just tell me more. Tell me more about that. Why do you feel that way? And then, is that important to know? That's because sometimes people will say things and you'll think it's hugely important to them, and it won't be. It was just something they wanted to say in the moment. So you want to know, is that important? If they say yes, then you want to know why. Again, why? I have why on this screen, on this slide, I don't know how many times, but over and over again, why? Why do you feel that way? And then another big question that equals a lot of gold is, what else would you like to see? What is missing here? What do you need to know? All these questions do is give you exactly what's on, I call it the jury's blackboard, meaning what's inside, what they believe, what their feelings are. All these kind of questions lead the way to information that is hugely important for any trial. And then particularly on a Zoom, you have to make sure that you keep everyone involved. If someone's quiet, they just might not be a talker. Sometimes the most quiet focus group participant has the best information to share, and you have to make sure that you reach that person. You can ask them after the talkative focus group member is done talking, go to the quiet one and ask, do you agree with what John just said? Do you agree with what she just said? Why do you feel that way? Why not? And then a big rule in all focus groups is more of them and less of you. You should be doing the least amount of talking the entire time. And then also along those same lines, just shut up and listen. Just the best thing you can do is get a discussion going amongst the group and then slowly step back and let them talk. What you're watching at that point is jury deliberation. How often do lawyers wish they could be inside of a jury room listening to the deliberation? When you get a discussion going amongst a focus group, that's what you're doing. You're watching deliberation. Just let it happen, just back out and listen. Then with the results, determining what the results mean is a different skill that this focus group does not have. I mean, this presentation does not have the time to cover. What I always tell people is try not to interpret what they're saying. That is a completely separate skill. It requires specific training, years of training. Just listen to what the focus group says and adjust your case to match what they say. In addition, it's not just one focus group you're doing this with. When we do a trial, we do multiple focus groups to make sure that we are in line with what the jury as a whole thinks. Also, don't fight the results. You're going to get bad, like Dave just mentioned, one of the focus groups we ran, I think it was a month and a half ago, we got a ton of negative information about what our client did wrong. And that does not feel good. But at the end of the day, that's what we want. You want to have the negative so that you can fix it, so that you can deal with it. Fighting the results and not believing this negative information is going to do nothing but harm the case. In addition, another great tip is watch the recording without the sound on. Watch how the focus group members react to a point another focus group member made. Watch their body language. Watch what makes them grimace. Watch what makes them smile, shift in their seat, get uncomfortable. What you're doing is trying to pick up cues during a trial that the same thing happens. You're looking for those grimaces and those facial expressions, that body language on the jury, so that you can basically test your case and you'll know what the jury is thinking by their body language, because you've seen it many times before in your focus groups. And as we mentioned before as well, at the end of the day, we give them forms, jury verdict sheets. Number one, we use jury verdict sheets constantly. And when I'm talking about verdict sheets, I'm not talking about the official ones. They could be as simple as who do you side with, Mr. Jones or Mrs. Smith? And you hand those out, or in a Zoom, we do it electronically. And there you can check in with them during the course of the focus group by these simple verdict sheets. Then we always do evaluations at the end, and evaluate our performance as well as the focus group setup, what they liked about the Zoom, what they didn't like about the Zoom. A lot of those tips that Courtney had talked to you about, those generalized tips about using the functions in Zoom, came from focus group members telling us, hey, if there was a way that you guys could use the raise your hand feature on the Zoom, it would be a lot better. Or there was too much talking, I couldn't hear or something. You'll pick up a lot of problems and a lot of things you can fix during your focus groups by these evaluations. In addition on those evaluations, you're evaluating yourself and your performance. And it's never good to get negative. Doesn't feel good to get negative feedback. But if someone on a focus group is repeatedly saying that you're doing something that's annoying, you better believe that it's not only annoying them, it's annoying the jury members too. And then the last slide that we have, in this, I always put this anytime I talk about focus groups, is with focus groups, if you win the focus group, you are losing. What you're looking to do is lose the focus group, because that helps you win at the real trial. All this means is that what you want from your focus group is, you don't want to go out and present your case and walk away with a win at your first focus group, because you will have learned nothing. You learn from these focus group, especially now with all the changing ideas and changing feelings, especially now you're looking to lose these focus groups. Don't be discouraged by getting a negative result at the focus group. It gives you something to fix and work on. Now, right before trial, if we're still losing focus groups, then we have a problem. But leading up to trial, leading up to depositions, you're looking to lose the focus group so you can actually help build your case, and you know what steps are needed and what things need to be fixed. Dave, do we have any questions in the chat room?
So, Adelina, Rich, why don't you Rich, why don't you stop the share if you don't mind?
Yep.
Stop the highlight.
See if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat room. I just wanted to thank our speakers for a very clear and easy to follow presentation. And thank you so much for taking the time and for your insights today. I need to remind everybody about the evaluation form and the attorney verification form. If you could please send that to Pat Warrington, and you'll be receiving more information about our future CLEs in the fall. I don't know that we have any questions at this time, but if anybody has any questions following the presentation later today, feel free to email me and Pat, and we can pass them along to our speakers.
Yeah, you guys could just, so the other thing is real quick, if anybody is thinking to themselves, hey, I want to start doing focus groups, I've never done them before, somebody at our firm will definitely feel free to ask us. We will help you guys set it up. We will do things to make your guys' life easier as far as that goes. Just reach out, any of our first names at buffalolaw.com. So it's David at buffalolaw.com, Courtney at buffalolaw.com, Rich and Joe. So we're happy to help anybody with doing this process. I know it's a little bit intimidating early on, but really they are great things, and you should definitely do them. Okay.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Ron.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.